Millions of people headed west, chasing gold and a better life. They built whole towns from scratch. But when the wealth dried up, those towns died with it. Some turned to dust. Others are still standing, exactly the way they were left. Today we're going to check out 21 of these ghost towns and understand why each one was abandoned. Subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Number 1. Bodie, California. In 1859, a guy named William Bodie found gold in the mountains and changed everything. In less than 20 years, that patch of land turned into a town with 10,000 people, 65 saloons, and one of the most violent reputations in the Old West. Shootouts, robberies, and brawls were so common that the local paper recorded deaths almost every day. But when the gold ran out, the town died with it. By the 1940s, there was barely anyone left. Today, Bodie is preserved exactly the way it was abandoned, with plates on the tables and objects still on the shelves. But here's the weird part. There's a curse that park rangers talk about. Visitors who take anything with them start reporting unexplainable things and end up mailing the items back, along with apology letters describing what they went through. Number 2. In 1905, a prospector found gold a few miles from Death Valley, one of the harshest places in the United States. In less than 2 years, Rhyolite, Nevada, already had 5,000 residents, a 3-story bank, a train station, and even a stock exchange. Money was flowing so fast that one guy built his whole house out of beer and liquor bottles because lumber was too expensive. But here's the part nobody saw coming. The financial panic of 1907 cut off investment overnight. The mines shut down. By 1920, there wasn't a single soul living there. Today, the roofless bank and the jail in ruins are still standing out in the desert. And next to those structures, someone set up giant ghost sculptures covered in white plaster, staring out at the empty road. It looks like something out of a horror movie, but it's real. The question is simple. What makes thousands of people bet everything on a place like that and then disappear without a trace? Number 3. Bannack, Montana. In 1862, gold was found in Grasshopper Creek, and the news spread like wildfire. Before long, around 10,000 people were living there, and it became the first capital of the Montana Territory. But there was a serious problem. Sheriff Henry Plummer, the man who was supposed to protect the town, was actually the leader of a gang of thieves and killers known as the Innocents. The group robbed and murdered prospectors on the roads without anyone suspecting who was giving the orders. When the truth came out in 1864, the townspeople didn't wait for a trial. Vigilantes hanged Plummer on the same gallows he had ordered built. By the 1950s, the last residents had left. Today, people who visit the old hotel and the jail say they hear footsteps and voices where nobody should be. The question is, could Plummer still be haunting the place where he was betrayed? Number 4. Jerome, Arizona. This town was built literally on the side of a mountain. During the 1920s, Jerome had nearly 15,000 people living there, all because of the copper mines that seemed endless. Money was flowing, and the town grew way too fast. But when the price of copper crashed, Jerome became a ghost town almost overnight. Fewer than 100 residents were left. Here's where the story gets interesting. Hundreds of miners died in explosions and cave-ins in those mines. Today, the buildings that survived have been turned into art galleries and hotels. But owners and visitors report strange things. Footsteps in empty hallways, doors opening on their own, whispers that seem to come from under the floor. A lot of people believe the miners who never made it out of those underground tunnels are still there, trapped inside the mountain walls that killed them. Number 5. Garnet, Montana. Back in the late 1890s, this town popped up out of nowhere when gold was found in the mountains. Before long, it had around 1,000 residents, working hotels, packed saloons, and that classic gold rush energy. But here's the detail not many people talk about. When the gold dried up, people just left and abandoned everything. Houses, furniture, personal belongings. The forest slowly started swallowing the buildings. Today, people who visit Garnet in the winter swear they hear strange noises coming from the empty cabins. Locals talk about sounds of voices and footsteps, like the miners who died in the brutal mountain blizzards are still trying to find their way back. The federal government preserves the place, but nobody stays there after dark. Number 6. Belmont sprang up in the middle of the Nevada desert when silver was found in 1865. In just a few months, the place already had 2,000 residents, saloons, newspapers, and even an impressive courthouse that's still standing. The town grew so fast it became the county seat of Nye County, with politicians, lawyers, and miners fighting for space and power. But when the silver started running out in the 1880s, the population left almost overnight. And here's the interesting detail. People who moved away would rip the wood out of their own houses to reuse somewhere else, because building materials in the desert were worth gold. What was left were just brick walls, exposed to the wind, like the skeleton of a town that was once thriving. The courthouse stood the test of time and became one of the most photographed ghost buildings in the American West, holding stories of violent trials over territory disputes between miners. Number 7. St. Elmo, Colorado. Back in the 1880s, this little town lived off mining and grew to around 2,000 residents. It was a busy place with hotels, saloons, and whole families trying their luck in the mountains. But when the silver started running out, everything changed fast. In 1922, the train that connected St. Elmo to the rest of the world made its last trip, and with it, almost everyone left. Now here's where it gets strange. They say a woman named Annabelle Stark refused to leave. While her own family moved on, she stayed there alone, taking care of a hotel that wasn't getting any guests anymore. She lived like that until she died, completely isolated in that icy valley. To this day, visitors report things that are hard to explain inside that ruined hotel. Doors slamming with no wind, footsteps where nobody is. Coincidence? Maybe. But people who've been there swear they weren't alone. Number 8. Florence, Idaho. In 8-1, when word of gold spread through the area, thousands of prospectors showed up within months, turning a remote camp into a town with more than 10,000 people. The problem was, the law basically didn't exist there. Outlaw gangs took over the streets and the saloons, and settling disputes with bullets became routine. Historians estimate that dozens of men died in shootouts in just the first few years, many buried in unmarked graves. Florence was even considered one of the most dangerous places in the entire American territory at the time. But like every gold rush town, when the metal ran out, people left as fast as they arrived. Today, what's left are ruins scattered through the mountains of Idaho, a quiet reminder that the gold rush created fortunes and destroyed lives at the same speed. Number 9. Berlin, Nevada. This town sprang up in the 1890s when silver was found in the area and hundreds of people rushed in to try their luck. The problem is, the silver ran out fast and everyone left. But what makes Berlin different from other ghost towns is a detail not many people know. The ground where miners worked and died in cave-ins holds something much older. We're talking about ichthyosaur fossils, marine reptiles that swam there when Nevada was the bottom of an ocean more than 200 million years ago. Think about that. 19th century miners digging for riches in the same soil where prehistoric creatures have been buried for ages. Some of those men never made it out of the mines, Today, the place is a state park, and the town ruins sit just a few yards from the shelter where the fossils are on display. Human bones and sea monster bones, separated by millions of years, brought together in the same patch of desert. Number 10. Oatman, Arizona. This little town in the middle of the desert has a story not many people really know. It all started when gold was found in the area around 1915, and like always, thousands of people rushed in to try their luck. The town grew fast. It ended up with hotels, shops, and even a movie theater. But when the gold ran out, everyone left and abandoned not just the buildings, but their packed burros too. Today, the descendants of those animals wander the streets like they own the place. But the darkest detail is where the name comes from. Olive Oatman was a girl captured by native people in 851, right there in that region. She spent years in captivity, was tattooed on the face, and only made it back to civilization when she was around 19. Her story became a legend in the Old West and gave its name to this place that now feels like a frozen-in-time set.
Number 11. Tombstone, Arizona, was born in 1877 when a guy named Ed Schieffelin went looking for ore in the desert, and everyone told him he'd only find his own tombstone. He found silver and named the town Tombstone as a joke. Within a few years, it turned into a place with over 100 saloons, gamblers, gunmen, and money flowing everywhere. But what really put Tombstone on the map happened one afternoon in October 881. In a narrow alley near the OK Corral, the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday came face to face with the Cowboys gang. The whole shootout lasted about 30 seconds, 30 shots fired. When the smoke cleared, 3 men were dead on the ground. Half a minute that changed Old West history and turned that patch of desert into a symbol of everything the American frontier stood for.
Number 12. Virginia City, Nevada. In 1859, a group of miners stumbled onto something that would change the American West forever. The Comstock Lode, one of the biggest silver deposits ever found on the continent. Overnight, Virginia City blew up from a dusty camp into one of the richest towns in the country. But here's the detail not many people talk about. The town was built literally on top of a maze of mining tunnels and shafts. Some of those holes ran right under saloons and businesses. The ground people walked on was, in many cases, just a thin layer separating life from death. Reports from the time describe miners and bar patrons who would simply disappear overnight. Some were found at the bottom of abandoned shafts, yards below the surface. Accidents? Or something more sinister? Back then, nobody really investigated. Silver was worth more than any human life in that town. Number 13. Deadwood popped up out of nowhere in 1876 when gold was found in the Black Hills of South Dakota, land that belonged to the Sioux under a federal treaty. Within months, thousands of people flooded in, creating a lawless town with no government and no rules. There was no sheriff, no judge, and any argument over a gold claim could end with someone dead before dinner. The most famous episode happened in a saloon called Nuttall and Man, where Wild Bill Hickok, one of the most feared gunmen in the West, was shot in the back while playing poker. The killer, Jack McCall, simply walked up behind him and fired. The cards Hickok was holding at that moment, 2 aces and 2 eights, became known forever as the dead man's hand. The creepiest part is that Hickok rarely sat with his back to the door, but that night, the only open seat was right there. Number 14. Silverton, Colorado, around 1873. This little town popped up in the middle of the mountains as a stopover for miners chasing silver and gold in the area. It became kind of a hub for smaller villages nearby, where workers would come to blow whatever they'd made in the mines. And that's where the story gets dark. There was a street called Blair Street that got a reputation for reasons nobody was proud of. It was the center of the worst things in town. Saloons that never closed, brothels operating out in the open, and gambling where fortunes were lost in a single night. Murders happened with a frequency that's hard to believe today. What's most shocking is that local authorities basically let it happen because that whole business brought in too much money to shut down. Blair Street worked like a parallel economy that kept Silverton alive, even though it was exactly the kind of thing that could destroy it. Number 15. Grafton, Utah, 86. This place has a story not many people know. Mormon pioneers came there in the 1850s trying to build a new life near the Virgin River. The problem was that the river flooded constantly, wiping out crops and homes, but it wasn't the water that drove them out. Violent conflicts with local native tribes turned everyday life into a fight to survive. The so-called Black Hawk War in the 1860s hit communities like Grafton hard. Whole families were ambushed. The town's small cemetery tells that story better than any book, with headstones for people who died way too young, in circumstances nobody wanted to write down in detail. Little by little, residents moved away. By the early 1900s, Grafton was already a ghost town. Today the buildings are still standing, surrounded by red desert, like they're waiting for someone to come back.
Number 16. Frisco, Utah. In the 1870s, this town popped up out of nowhere when silver was discovered in the area. Before long, thousands of people showed up looking for easy fortune. But here's the part not many people talk about. Frisco was so dangerous that a single marshal had to kill 6 men just to keep even a little order on the streets. Shootouts were an everyday thing. Saloons ran non-stop and the law basically didn't exist. The turning point came in 1885 when the main mine simply collapsed. The collapse was so violent, they say the blast could be heard miles away. Dozens of miners died buried underground. Without the mine, there was no reason to stay. The whole town emptied out in a matter of months. Today, what's left are stone ruins and abandoned furnaces out in the desert, a reminder that easy wealth almost always comes with a high price.
Number 17. Jarbidge, Nevada. This little town tucked away in the mountains of northern Nevada was the site of the last major gold rush in the continental United States around 1909. Thousands of prospectors showed up betting everything on a better life. But winters in those mountains didn't go easy on anyone. Brutal snowstorms blocked the routes for months, and many people simply never came back. In 1916, the last stagecoach robbery in American history happened there, a crime that shocked the entire country. The town also became known for its makeshift jail, where justice was carried out fast and with little ceremony. Today, fewer than 20 people live there on one of the most isolated roads in the country, basically impassable in winter. Jarbidge is a reminder that the gold rush didn't always end in riches. Number 18, Goodsprings, Nevada. This little desert town got rich during World War I. Why? Zinc and lead, 2 metals the military desperately needed to make ammunition and war gear. Money was pouring in, and miners from everywhere showed up looking for a quick fortune. But where there's easy money, there's trouble. The Pioneer Saloon, which has been operating since 1913, still carries the marks of that violent era. If you look closely at the walls, you'll find real bullet holes, leftovers from fights that ended badly. And here's where it gets interesting. Locals and visitors swear the place is haunted. They say the spirits of miners murdered during disputes never left. Staff report doors opening on their own, voices when the saloon is empty, and shadows moving for no reason. The strange part is that nobody knows exactly how many men died inside there during those years of heavy mining. Number 19. Terlingua sits in the middle of the Texas desert near the border with Mexico, and for decades it was one of the biggest mercury producers in the United States. In the 1940s, the mines dried up and the town basically died. But what not many people know is the price the workers paid. Mercury is a silent poison that attacks the nervous system, and a lot of miners died without even understanding what was happening to them. The town cemetery, packed with wooden crosses stuck between rocks, tells that story better than any book. The graves don't always have names, just simple marks for people who were forgotten. And here's the strange part. Today, Terlingua is world famous for an annual chili championship that draws thousands of people. They camp, drink beer, and cook right on top of a town that killed its own residents. Number 20. Calico emerged in the desert of Southern California in 881, when they discovered silver in the mountains. Within a few years, more than 500 mines were operating there, and the population reached 1,200 people. It had everything: saloons, shops, even its own newspaper. But when the price of silver crashed in the 1890s, the town died quickly. People simply left everything behind. Walter Knott, the same guy from Knott's Berry Farm, bought the place in the 1950s and restored a good part of the buildings. Today it's a park in San Bernardino County. But the detail that stands out is the reports of miners who never made it out of the mines. Visitors say they hear footsteps and voices coming from the abandoned tunnels, especially at night. No one can explain where those sounds come from. Number 21. Animas Forks, Colorado. This town sat more than 3,000 meters above sea level, surrounded by peaks that in winter turned into natural traps. The miners who went up there chasing silver faced something no paycheck could make up for. Avalanches came down without warning and buried entire houses with families inside. In 1884, a snowstorm trapped the residents for 23 straight days. Anyone who didn't freeze to death almost lost their mind, but the danger didn't come only from the mountain. The entertainment district had a reputation of its own. Fights over gambling and booze ended in gunfire, and bodies showed up on the streets in the morning like it was routine. When silver lost value, whoever could left. Whoever couldn't stayed trapped up there waiting for a rescue that never came. Which of these stories impressed you the most? Comment down below, send it to that friend who's into these mysteries, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next ones.